Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to be learning how to hold back and not stand out as a guitar player. I know that's counter to what most guitar instruction will teach you. Most of it is how to play this driving rhythm, and I'm just as guilty as anyone, or how to play a big solo. But a lot of what you need to know as a musician is knowing how to complement the other instruments in the band. And so that it's not always about standing out, it's about playing something that's complementary. So I tried to write a solo somewhere between a rhythm and a lead part that complements what the piano and the other guitar was doing in the jam track. This would be great if you had a vocalist involved. You play these little fill licks to kind of complement where the vocals are, filling in the gaps, but not standing out, not stepping on anyone's toes. So we're going to learn that in this lesson. I'm going to break that down, everything that I played note for note, and show you how to do that. I've got this lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll learn the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, as well as download the tablature and the MP3 jam track to practice with, you can go to ActiveMelody.com, go to the lessons page, and do a search for EP240. Alright, so I'm going to spend just a few minutes at the beginning of this video talking about the theory behind composing something in a minor key, what the number system looks like, what chords go with what chords, and all of that, which chords are major, which chords are minor, and how they fit together. Now if you want to skip ahead to the time that's on the screen, you can do that and go right into the specific notes if you already understand all of that, or you have no interest. But let's go ahead and break that down. Now if you haven't watched EP237, that's one I did fairly recently, I go over the major scale and what the number system is for the major scale and how all that works. So you might want to check that out if you haven't. But with the minor scale, it's the same thing. There's a number system just like there is in the major scale. Now with the major scale, it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We know it by ear, right? And remember, we put a number to each of those, and each number has a chord. That chord can be either major or minor, or diminished in one case as well. Same is true for playing something in a minor key. The only difference is we're going to use the minor scale. We're not going to use the major scale. So the minor scale sounds like that. Now I'm playing this in the key of A, but you can see it has a different feel. And to come up with the minor scale, you take the major scale and you flat the third, the sixth, and the seventh interval. You flat those notes, and you'll get the minor scale, or the natural minor scale. That's the proper term for it, the natural minor scale. And so that's what this is, the natural minor scale. And all of the lead stuff that I played came from that. And we'll get into that in just a minute. I'll explain the boundaries. But let me just explain the chord structure for this. So there's 5 chords. There's an A minor, there's a D7, there's an F, a C, and then it goes to an E7, and back to the A minor. Now some of you are probably thinking, well, how do you put those chords together? Well, all I did was I followed the format, just like we covered in EP237 on how to write songs with the format. I'm using that minor scale, that natural minor scale, and the number system. Now if we put a number to each of those notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 7 intervals, then we can call them out, and we can now put a chord to each of those numbers. And here's the format for the chords when you're playing in a minor key. Your 1 chord is minor, your 2 chord is diminished, your 3 chord is major, your 4 chord is minor, your 5 chord can be major or minor. That's kind of interesting, we'll get to that. Your 6 chord is always major, and your 7 chord is always major. So that's the format. Now that's exactly the same format, by the way, as the major scale. That would be the same as if we had started on the 6th step of the major scale and just looped through. That's the same format for the chords, whether they be major or minor, as used in the major scale. Wow, that's hard to say all of that, but I hope that makes sense. So that's where these chords come from. So this first chord that I'm playing, your 1 chord, is an A minor. Then I go to the 4 chord. Now, as I mentioned, the 4 chord is always minor in the proper setup, but you can tweak them and make them major if you want to give a different pull. So that's what I did here. So I played a major 4 chord. So we have the 1 chord, a major 4 chord. Then we have the 6th chord, which would be the F, and then the 3 chord, which is the C. And then we go to the 5 chord, which is a major 5. Now remember, you can make the 5 chord major or minor. But that's the chord format. or the number format for this song. That's where those chords come from. And you can pull any of those chords, any of those notes that I put a number to, and I could put a chord to any of those using that format that I showed, and it's going to work. So you might play around with that if you want to write something in a minor key and see what you can come up with. Alright, so now that we've covered the chords, let's talk about the scale that's used. I'm using the natural minor scale. And that's the same as the minor pentatonic scale, which I know you know. I know you know that one, right? If you know that minor pentatonic scale, we're going to add 2 notes to that and convert that to the natural minor scale. That's it. So it's really 5 notes are the same in both scales, but the 2 extra notes, we're going to look at pattern 1. This is the minor pentatonic scale. So there's 1 note, that's a B, that we're adding to make this the natural minor scale. There's the 2nd note, so that's an F. So we have... Now we're just going to keep walking down the minor pentatonic. Here's another placement of it. It's the same 2 notes, but it's just in different places. There's another one. There's another one. So you can see that is what makes up the natural minor scale. And obviously you can play that in all the different patterns as well. You just have to add those 2 notes throughout. But most of everything we're going to be playing is just in this pattern 1 to make it easy. So the only other thing I would mention is we're going to be playing in the key of the song. We're not going to be trying to change scales to match chords or any of that. The song is going to be in A minor, and we're going to be playing in that A natural minor scale through the whole thing. Even though the chords are all these major chords, we're going to be playing in that minor scale. Alright, so let's go ahead and break down the notes. Now the first thing that I played sounds like this. Alright, now if you can see what I'm doing, I'm in that minor pentatonic scale for all of this. And I'm picking here, I'm playing the 5th fret, 4th string, and doing a hammer onto the 7th fret. And then I played strings 2 and 3 on the 5th fret, just behind a bar there. I'm barring the first 3 strings. Now when I played that, I used these 2 fingers to pluck that. And you can see with my right hand. You don't have to do that. I feel like I have a little more control when I do that. You could do an upstroke with the pick if that's easier for you. But that's what I'm doing there. Then I'm back on the 7th fret 4th string, and I played. And that, again, I'm plucking with these 2 fingers on strings 2 and 3. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping that bar there on the 5th fret, and I'm doing a hammer on to the 7th fret 3rd string. Back to the 7th fret 4th string. 5th fret, strings 2 and 3. And then I go back down with my ring finger on the 7th fret 3rd string, playing strings 2 and 3. So all together from the beginning we have... That's a hammer on there. Now, to count that in, you'd count it like this. It comes in on the 3. So you go 1, 2, 3. So when you're playing along with a jam track, just remember that. Wait, count it out in your head. 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. And then the next thing I play is this Keith Richards kind of country sounding lick that goes... And to play that, what I'm doing, again, I'm plucking with these 2 fingers on strings 2 and 3. And you can see I'm still in minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. I've got my ring finger on the 8th fret 2nd string, and my middle finger is on the 7th fret 3rd string. And I'm plucking both of those strings at the same time. I'm keeping my ring finger down while I do a bend with my middle finger like this. So I did 2 of those. And then a release. And then I came down and played strings 2 and 3 on the 5th fret. And then that same hammer on that happens between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on the 3rd string, while I'm plucking with these 2 fingers, plucking strings 2 and 3. So, and then this note is an interesting note because that's really not in the natural minor scale. It's not in the minor pentatonic scale. So this is a little tip that I picked up along the way. There is another minor scale which is called the harmonic minor scale. It's the same exact scale as the natural minor scale except for 1 note, and this note is that note. That's the harmonic minor scale. So when you're playing in a minor key and there's the 5 chord, and that 5 chord is major, which it is in this case, it's an E7 chord, you can play that note, that one note, and it switches the whole feeling of your lead. So that's an easy note to find because it's whatever your root note is, your tonic, you just go 1 fret behind it. So if you're playing in the A, you're trying to resolve on an A, just go down 1/2 step there. And that's that harmonic minor scale. That's where that note comes from. Okay, so anyway, that's the 6th fret 4th string, and I slid into that. 5th fret 3rd string, did a hammer on to the 7th fret, and then I came back to the 5th fret 3rd string. Let's take it back from the beginning now. All right, 1, 2. You can see how it's very laid back, and a lot of what I'm doing is just complementing what the keyboard is doing and the rhythm guitar. Just this, it's kind of comping, it's like jazz comping. I feel like I'm not playing lead, I'm not really playing rhythm, I'm straddling the fence there trying to complement the music. And then I went, came up and played this lick. This is a great little lick. It's very easy to find. I'm just going into pattern 2 now of the minor pentatonic scale. So even though I said I did this big setup for the natural minor scale, these notes are in the natural minor scale, but it's just easier to think of them, at least for me, to think of them in the minor pentatonic scale. I'll work in those natural minor licks when I need to. So that's pattern 2. So I'm on the 10th fret 2nd string. I start with that note, and then I go to the 9th fret 3rd string, and immediately slide down to the 7th fret. So it goes like this. Then I go down to the 5th fret on the 3rd string, and then a hammer on to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then resolve there on the 5th fret 3rd string. So all together we have... And then we go into this Robin Ford sounding lick. I got this from Robin Ford. I love this, especially that. That's just so cool sounding. And really, it's just the notes. I'm just playing 2 notes at the same time out of the minor pentatonic scale. So in this case, it would be the 8th fret 2nd string with my ring finger, and then my middle finger is on the 7th fret 3rd string. Playing those 2 notes, and then I'm back down to the 5th fret, strings 2 and 3. And then watch this. It's just walking right down that minor pentatonic scale, playing 2 strings at once, and this time we're going, after we do this, then I'm going to go ahead and bar the first 4 strings on the 7th fret, plucking strings 2 and 3. And that's the other thing, is I'm using these 2 fingers to pluck that. I just feel like I have more control when I'm doing that, as opposed to trying to pick it. Alright, so that's 7th fret, and then we do the same thing on the 5th fret. And then I come down to the 5th fret, strings 4 and 5, and I do a hammer on like that, because that's where the C chord is, right? So I'm just kind of building that C chord that way. So that's first 5 strings on the 5th fret. We're going to play strings 5 and 4, and do a hammer on with my ring finger to the 7th fret 5th string. And then I do an upstroke on the 3rd string, which is behind the bar there on the 5th fret. Okay, from the beginning, we have as follows. You can see how it's just very sparse. I'm just throwing out notes here and there. I'm not trying to do all this heavy, like right up front in your face lead stuff. I'm trying to just let there be some time between these notes, and let it breathe. It's like you're just throwing out little statements here and there. So try that. It's a hard thing to do, to really hold yourself back, especially if you've got a million ideas flooding through your head, to try and pare that back. Okay, the next thing I played was this minor chord. So I'm playing, so we're back to the 1 chord, which is an A minor. And all I'm doing is I'm playing a different voicing of that. That's one way you can think of it. It's just the A minor chord like this. Or you can just picture the notes, literally visualize that minor pentatonic scale pattern 2. Those 3 notes out of it. And you're playing them at the same time. So, middle finger goes down on the 9th fret 3rd string. Pinky is on the 10th fret 2nd string. And then index finger goes down on the 8th fret 1st string. And I'm trying to give that a little vibrato. I use my pinky there because I find it easier to be able to let those notes ring out. If I use my ring finger, for some reason my fingers tend to bump those strings. So play around with whatever setup works best for you. Then I slide that up 2 frets and then back to where I started. And I use that lick a lot. Those of you that follow these lessons have seen and heard that before. I got that from Robert Cray. And then after that there's this bend that happens right there on the 10th fret 1st string. Again, this is just pattern 2 of the minor pentatonic scale. I'm doing a full bend on the 10th fret 1st string, a bend and release, and then a pull off. So I really only picked that once. That pull off leads me to the 8th fret 1st string, and then a hammer on to the 10th fret 2nd string. And then I came down and I did the exact same thing, just an octave lower, which would be the 7th fret 3rd string. So it's the bend and release. So it goes from the 7th fret down to the 5th fret. And then I do a slide up to the 9th fret on the 3rd string. And then back to the 7th fret 3rd string. After that 9th fret I go, do a quick bend or slide into that note, and then slide up 1 fret to the 8th fret and back to the 7th fret. It gives it that nice kind of bluesy. People do that with their vocal. So let's put all that together. We have that's the 5th fret 3rd string, and then we resolve it there on the 7th fret 4th string. Okay, so let's take it from the A minor chord played up here. And then I play this lick that goes. And really what I'm doing is I'm thinking about the next chord. I said we're not going to play the chord changes. I guess in this case I did, just subconsciously. But the next chord is that D7 chord. That's that major. It's the 4 chord, but it's a major 4. And what I ended up thinking in my mind was I was thinking of the D chord using this shape. And so I was thinking of just taking that bar, which is that part of the chord, and building up to that. So that's all I did. And or at least that's how I got there with my ear. So I'm coming in, this is where that natural minor scale is going to come into play. So this is one of those notes that's not in the minor pentatonic scale, but it is in that natural minor. So that's the 4th fret 3rd string. We're going to play that note and then do a hammer on to the 5th fret and a pull off. And then another hammer on to the 7th fret 4th string. That's what it looks like. Let me do that slowly. Just picking it once. And then I come down to the 5th fret 4th string, and this is where I build that chord, that D chord. So that's a slide from the 7th fret to the 9th fret on the 5th string. And then I go ahead and bar the first 4 strings on the 7th fret, play strings 4, and then 3 and 2. It's just a nice little phrase, a little lick that just fits right in there perfectly over that D chord. So then after that D part, the last thing that I played was, and that's just, again, that minor pentatonic scale. I'm starting there on the 8th fret 2nd string, coming down to the 5th fret 2nd string, and then I do a quick slide from the 8th fret to the 7th fret on the 3rd string. then play the 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string, and that last note is the 5th fret 3rd string. So all together that last lick goes like this. And that's really all there is in this first half. Now there's a lot of information there, and I want to back up and play through everything one more time so you have a final reference. I'll play through it slowly. And then I'll see you in part 2. The real learning though in this lesson comes from playing along with that jam track and feeling the band and hearing it and playing along and feeling how your playing complements the music as opposed to trying to stand out in front of everybody. It's a really nice feeling. It's very rewarding when you can do that as a musician. So let's back up and then play through it one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.